Okay, let's move on to the third sutra. Um, Again, a little tricky pronunciation. Urdhva-Tiryagbyham. Okay. Again, how do we break it up? Urdh, Hava, right? Traya, Yag, Bhyam. Bhyam. Urdhva-Tiryagbyham. Okay. Again, translation of this is vertically and crosswise. Vertically and crosswise. Right. So this powerful principle, it provides an elegant method for multiplication that simplifies complex calculation into a series of simple steps. Okay. So before we begin our first example, let's understand the deeper meaning behind this sutra. So in authentic Vedic mathematics, this principle reveals how multiplication can be restructured into a pattern of vertical and diagonal operations. Okay. The ancient sages, recognized that this approach eliminates the need to memorize multiplication tables, right, beyond 5 by 5, making calculations more accessible and efficient. Okay. So the first example, we're going to do a 2-digit multiplication. Okay, 23 by 41. Okay, 23 by 41. So like before, let's look at the Vedic insight of this sutra, Urdhva-Tiryagbyham, how it applies to multiplication from a modern math perspective. So this sutra reveals the ancient Vedic technique of vertically and crosswise multiplication, as we taught. It's considered the crown jewel of Vedic mathematics. Okay. Unlike conventional multiplications that require multiple steps and carrying digits, this method uses a systematic pattern of vertical and diagonal operations. The Vedic sages recognized that this pattern works universally for any multiplication, regardless of the number of digits, revealing the algebraic structure underlying arithmetic operations. Okay. So if you look at 23 by 41, right? So we talked about vertical and crosswise, right? So what step 1 is vertical. So if you look at 23 and 41, right? When you look at here from a vertical perspective, when you put the digits, it's 2 and 4, right? So step 1 is you multiply 2 and 4. Okay. And in step 2, you do crosswise. That means you take 2 and you multiply into 1, and then you take 3 and you multiply it into 4, right? So basically, the tens digit to the units of the second number, and then the units digit to the tens, right? So it's 2 times 1 and 3 times 4. Okay, remember that. And step 3 is the other vertical, which is 3 and 1, right? The 3 and 1. So as you can see, we went through the steps. 2 times 4 is 8, which was the first one, right? And then we did 2 times 1 and 3 times 4, the crosswise. And then you add that, right? So you do a crosswise 2 times 1 plus 3 times 4. So that's 2 plus 12 is 14. and then you do the vertical one, the other vertical one, which is on the units digit. That's 3 and 1. That's 3, right? So that is basically kind of the carry over. So 14, right? So it's 14, and then you have one carry over, so that's 9, right? So hundreds place is 9. Okay, so if you do it that way, you can see the 4. Like when we did the step 2, you had 14, right? So then when you do the vertical, you had 3, right? So then your carry is 14. Out of the 14, 1 is carry, right? And 4 is the answer, right? So as you can see, when you do the units vertical 3, that comes here as the units. And then when you do the crosswise, you have 14. So you have the 4 here, and the 1 is carry over, right? And then when you do the other vertical here, right, which is 2 and 4, 8, the carryover is 1. So that's 9, right? So from the 14, you have 1 carryover, right? 4 is the answer. So then you carry over to that other vertical, which was on the tens digits, that's 9, right? So the final result is 9, 4, 3, right? So the units vertical 3, you put there, and then you do the cross multiplication, which is 2 times 1 and 3 times 4, you add them, so that's 2 plus 12, 14. So you put 4 there, and then you have 1 carryover. Then you do the vertical, and you add that 1 carryover for the tens digit, right? Which was your 2 times 4, 8, plus 1, 9. So 943. Okay. So anyway, so that's, again, the more you practice, you will see, how these multiplications comes together. So now let's look at a little bit further complex ones, the 3-digit multiplication, which is the 1, 2, 3, 123 times 456. Okay. Again, looking at the Vedic inside of this. So this example demonstrates the scalability of the Urdhva-Tiryagbyham method, right? Tiryagbyham method. The Vedic sages discovered that the same pattern of vertical crosswise operation extends elegantly to numbers of any size. So for 3-digit multiplications, we apply the same principle with more crosswise operations because you have one additional digit, right? And then we apply the same principle with more crosswise operations in the middle positions. So you have the hundreds in this case, and the units which will do vertical, and then the others will be horizontal. So this reveals a profound mathematical understanding of our ancestors, right, who recognize the universal pattern underlying multiplication operation regardless of the number size. Okay. So like before, if you take the hundreds digit, the vertical applies, so 1 times 4, right? And then that's 1 times 4. And then you do the second position, which is the first crosswise. You apply between 12, 1 and 2 on the first, and 3 and 5, right? So if you do apply that, you'll see in the second 1 times 5, right? Plus 2 times 4, so 5 plus 8 is 13, okay? Then you have one more in the middle position for crosswise, right? So that is basically the middle position of 1 times 6, and then 2 times 5, right? And then you add that 3 times 4, because now you're doing 3 of them, right? So you have 1, 2, 3, 123, and 456. So you'd start doing that 1 times 6, right? Then you do 2 times 5, right? And then you do 3 times 4, okay? And then you add all of those 3 together, and that's 6 plus 10 plus 12, right? So that's 27. So in the last position you have is what? Is the 6 and the 3. So that is vertical operations you apply, right? And then that gives you the 18. So now you start putting them together. So first you put them, all the numbers, right? You start the 4, the 13, the 28, and the 27, right? 28, 27, and the 18. Okay, so all of those 5 steps you did because you have 3-digit multiplications. So you had 2 verticals, and then you have 3 crosswise, right? And in between. So that's how you get these 4, 13, 28, 27, and 18. And now you start putting them together. So you start with 18, put 8, right? In that case, you have 1 carryover, right? So that becomes, you bring 1 over here, that's 28, 8, and then the 2 carryover. So add this 30, that's 0, then 3 carryover, that's 16, right? 6, and then 1 carryover is 5. So the answer is 56,000, right? 56,088. Okay? The more you do it, then you remember it, right? So it's basically vertically for the 2 end digits, right? The units and either tens or hundreds based on how big the number is on thousands. And then you do, those are the 2 results, and you put on 2 ends. And then for all of the numbers, you do cross multiplications, right? So that's the crosswise. So that's basically the fundamentals behind this, how you can do this mental calculations. Okay. So if you practice, you can you can see and you can get the patterns, and it avoids use of calculators. And again, I keep repeating it. It helps develop your brain patterns. So Urdhva-Tiryagbyham, right, demonstrates the elegant efficiency of Vedic mathematics. So by restructuring multiplication into a pattern of vertical and diagonal or crosswise operations, complex calculations, right, become a series of simple steps. So the Vedic insights we have explored reveal how ancient sages developed methods that remain relevant and powerful even in our modern world. So the Sutra is particularly valuable for mental calculations as it eliminates the need to memorize large multiplication tables and reduces the cognitive load by breaking down complex operations into manageable steps. So, as you practice these techniques, you will develop a deeper understanding of numerical relationship and enhance your mathematical abilities.